Pokémon Go is available almost everywhere except Japan. Do I care? Let's find out after coffee. Okay, let's have some coffee. Today's blend is called Tanzania Asante. Give you a nice good look at the beans there. Not that they look particularly different to any other kind of bean, but this is the Tanzania Asante. Let me know if you've ever had this blend before. I'm pretty excited about this coffee because I've actually never had it before. I mean, I've had it maybe yesterday morning, but this is the first week that I've actually gone out and got this blend, so I'm gonna put that in the grinder. But what I really wanted to talk about today is Pokémon Go. And clearly, you know, the whole world is in a frenzy about it because it's the first time in our lives that we're really able to bring the Pokémon experience to life. And of course that's exciting. Hold on, I can't find the spoon. Here it is, gold spoon. And I would love to be able to play Pokémon Go actually, but it's first of all just not available in Japan. And that's something to talk about as well. Why release a Pokemon game outside of Japan first? It's a bit like when they released PlayStation 4 outside of Japan, even though PlayStation originally was a Japanese console by Sony, you know, a Japanese company, which, I mean, of course, Sony is a worldwide company now, and so is Nintendo. It just brings up all these questions. How much do game companies really care about Japan anymore? And really, is Japan really the forefront of gaming anymore? And is Japan the exciting place that it once was? And you know, Keiji Inafune, he's famous now from Mighty No. 9, but obviously famous before from making all the Rock Band, Mega Man games and all that. I think he famously said, gaming is dead in Japan. And I think he actually backtracked on that eventually. He, decided that that's not really true. I'm trying to get this thing. Let's grind! I don't know. I don't think gaming's dead in Japan at all, but I do think it's become more specific. Where gaming before, we had the platform games, we had the RPGs, we had the action games, we had the arcade games, and now in Japan, it's just become so specific that, arcades are not really as popular as they were before, and all of the gaming on mobile platforms is really falling into a very specific category, and that is some kind of puzzle with some kind of anime element or whatever it is going to be, and they're going to put it together and hope that it does well. I think one of the best examples is Square Enix. They just stick things together all the time, and then when they don't work, like Alice Order recently was just completely cancelled quite suddenly. The question is, Pokémon Go. Would it have succeeded if they had released it in Japan first? And quite honestly, I don't think the answer is yes. Sure, Pokémon, there's a lot of nostalgia for that here. You can see from the 2DS that was released recently, they had the whole Pokémon, the old game, plus the green 2DS and the red 2DS and the yellow 2DS and the blue 2DS, which was specific to the Pokémon Center. I couldn't even get the blue 2DS in the end because I think it was pre-order only or limited edition only at the Pokémon Center. All these things show that Pokémon nostalgia is big in Japan. It's still big, it's still popular, so why? Why not release Pokémon Go in Japan first, where clearly the whole 2DS thing, the whole Pokémon thing is, sorry, the reason I was reaching over there was to get this. Why not release it in Japan first? Well, I think it's a little more complicated than that. In Japan, of course, they love their nostalgia, they love their retro games and all of that. But when it comes to actually taking Pokemon into Pokemon Go territory, where people are now going to have to play in real spaces. You can't just sit at home and pretend that you're in New York so that you can go and catch Mewtwo in Times Square. You all have to actually go to New York, unless you hack it. And I'm pretty sure that if they find out that you've been hacking the game, that you'll find your account barred eventually. It's going to probably be quite strict. Eventually, I don't know if it's quite easy to hack it now or not. That's the hot water. I'm gonna make sure that I get it while it's hot. So just being very careful not to pour this on myself. It does happen pretty much every single time I do this. So while the water is just cooling down to something around 88, maybe 87 degrees Celsius, Japan is not the type of place where people run around in places they're not supposed to be. So you've seen on Nihongo Gamer, I've been skating a lot, right? But actually, quite famously, Tokyo's not a very good place for skating because pretty much everywhere you go, you will get, chased off by security guards, and I've seen a lot of YouTube videos of people doing it. I'm gonna try and skate around Tokyo once I've got the chance, but I'm pretty sure I'll probably get chased off everywhere just because there's no real, what's the word, tolerance. Sorry, I had to look it up in the dictionary because I couldn't remember the word I was looking for. So the water's cooling down quite rapidly, and what I wanted to say is there's no real tolerance in Japan for people who are doing the wrong thing, because pretty much everyone is doing the right thing. So when one person does the wrong thing, it's really obvious who that person is. So with Pokemon Go, they don't want to, one, promote people going into people's back gardens without permission, especially, I mean, you can see like there's been news articles where people are finding that Niantic is sending people to places that maybe they probably shouldn't be sending them. That's, you know, that could just be because it's early days for the game, it just needs a little more calibration. I will talk more, but let's talk while looking at the coffee. So just going on from what I was saying about tolerance in Japan, I really don't think that Nintendo as a company wants to promote people trespassing. That's certainly not going to be very popular in Japan. I mean, when you think about otaku as well, and going back to where does otaku come from, I think originally it was an issue with society looking at people who were expressing themselves about their anime interests out in public. And it was never a problem before that because everyone just, you know, watched anime in their bedrooms and it was no big deal. But once, you know, expressing your love for anime out in the open started to become a thing, I think that's when people started to coin the term otaku. Like, oh, this person is publicly making a display of their personal interests, whereas I think culturally Japan would prefer that, you know, any interest is fine. There's a lot of tolerance for your personal interests, just as long as you don't do it in public and you don't impose it upon anyone else, which is where Pokemon Go comes in. That's not to say that I don't like the idea of it. I actually love the idea of running around and catching Pokemon in real life. There are a couple things though that I want to talk about, which I think are an issue, however. In Pokemon Go, they have to choose places to put the items, and actually the way that they make money in Pokemon Go is they get sponsored by locations, because those locations want people to go to their store, and then, you know, if they pay more money to Niantic, they can have more Pokemon. You know, for example, McDonald's or Starbucks or any of these companies could pay Niantic and then get more people to come to their shops, which is an interesting business idea, but it's not very transparent. I think they could afford to be a little bit more honest about the situation, about the fact that really this is not just a game where Pokemon are magically coming up in certain places. There is guidance and, you know, money matters that are deciding where people are going to be sent. Alright, just gonna grab my Yanaka coffee cup. I'm very, very proud of this Yanaka cup because it makes everything that I drink out of it taste so much better. Just gonna get the coffee off into this little cup here, and then let's pour the coffee out. I think I may have made a little bit too much, but let's enjoy hot coffee. It's kind of having trouble balancing, but ooh, it looks so good. This is the best part of every day. Yanaka coffee. Cheers! Oh, that's so good. Oh man. Oh, wow. Sometimes the coffee kind of spreads around to like the sides of your tongue. It's funny, some coffees just kind of sit right in the middle and they're just kind of dark and they're strong. But this one, it seems to like go into your mouth and kind of spread out to the edges. And I think maybe it has like an effect on taste buds that I don't usually use. That's really interesting. Tanzania Asante, whatever it is. Really nice. So going back to Pokemon Go, again, it probably sounds like I don't like Pokemon Go, and I can't really say that I don't like Pokemon Go because I haven't played it. I've played the tutorial and that's it. But when it comes to going outside, and I was excited when I did it, I couldn't find anything because the servers are just not up yet in Japan. And am I bothered by it? Actually, no, because this is a game which is essentially, I think here's how I would like to put the idea. What if there were no Pokemon in this game? And I like imagine the battle system, the system of catching the Pokemon is exactly the same. What if they're not actually Pokemon? It was called Catch Dudes. Catch Minions. Okay, yeah, let's base it on Minions because I'm not a big fan of Minions from Despicable Me. what if they were called catch minions? And there were different types of minions. There were the short minions, tall minions, and slightly greenish minions and pinkish minions. Would you be as excited to go and catch them if you knew that the places they were being put was pretty much based on how much money Niantic got from certain places? So essentially, this is just more advertising. Another way to get us to go somewhere. Before, it was product placement. It was, hey, there's a guy drinking a soft drink, a red soft drink with a black liquid in the inside. You know exactly what I'm talking about. They seems to really enjoy that caffeinated fluid. I kind of want it, right? And that's how products were marketed. But you had a lot of say in not buying that Coke. But this is one step closer. This is not just putting a picture of McDonald's in a game and reminding you that you want McDonald's. This is actually sending you to the shop. You are now physically closer to McDonald's, and maybe they could even time it so that, Mewtwo, whatever, and I'm sure it'll be Mewtwo, that's the big one. Mewtwo will just kind of appear at lunchtime at McDonald's. And then you'd be a fool to buy lunch anywhere else, probably, because you're already there. It is lunchtime. And maybe they could change it as well. They could keep tempting you, like making it longer and longer. Like Mewtwo's gonna arrive between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. So you've gotta be there for 4 hours and you have no choice but to eat lunch at McDonald's. Otherwise you're gonna risk not catching Mewtwo. All of this stuff, again, it's not really actually a bad idea. In a way, it's a very innovative way of making money. I just don't think that's what I'm looking for in games. When I play a game, I'm really interested in the gameplay aspect, the innovation in the actual way that you play it, which is not connected to factors like this shop, do I like this shop or do I like that shop? And it's not I think location-based gaming, of course, it will just take off. After Pokémon Go, there will be tons of games that will require you to be in certain places, and I think it's really, really interesting, and I'm sure that I will play some of them, but it does rub me the wrong way a little bit right now. I'm thinking, I just don't think you have to involve businesses in this way. It's like that one issue, whenever you find the product that you want and you discover that there's that one tiny little issue which is ruining it, and for me, that's Pokémon Go. Going around catching Pokémon in real life is brilliant, but that tiny little issue of businesses being attached to it, that really, really bugs me. Because once you've shown them that they have power over you, like, we will all go to McDonald's if you tell us Mewtwo's there. Once you give them that much power, that's when they'll start to abuse it. It's not yet, but it's gonna happen. It will happen. Absolutely, absolutely sure of it. It's not to say that it's not fun. I'm sure it's gonna be fun, and I'm sure that I will play it a little bit, and I'm sure I'll really enjoy it. Just putting it out there as something to discuss as, Pokémon Go. There are lots of issues going around it. For me, what I wanted to talk about was the business thing today, but there are plenty of other issues like companies deciding that this area should be really, really busy and sending, really rare Pokemon there. And it's because they are a business. They don't have to operate within the mandate of the government, which is supposedly looking out for us. They could just say, hey, you know what? There's an event happening in the city right now, which is like pro the rights of a certain group of people, and they say, you know what, let's ruin that event. Let's send Mewtwo to that event so that it's overridden with Pokemon trainers, because we just don't like that event, and there's no way to really know, and there's no way to really control, because they're a business. They're not under any guidelines like don't put Mewtwo in an important event. Say, for example, you've got a political leader that you support and you know that you want his voice or her voice to be heard while they're speaking. And you go, and then it's just overridden with 6,000 Pokemon trainers, and that's no exaggeration. There could be 6,000 people who arrive. They're gonna be making a lot of noise, or it's potential that they can make a lot of noise, and just confuse the event entirely. And this is where businesses, once you start to give them this much power, they could abuse it. Or if someone gets into the system and changes things without the business owner, like maybe the top head honcho of the business, they might not even know that this is happening. It could be someone who's a little bit further down the ladder who thinks, haha, you know what? Because I work at Niantic, I'm going to ruin this person's event or that person's event while they're trying to, you know, have a peaceful march or demonstration or political speech or an activists meeting, or so many things could happen. But that's not really what I was talking about today. What I was talking about was the business side. Pokémon Go, the game though, I mean, when you talk about innovation and technology, using GPS to find things that are not actually there, but give people the experience as if they were, with augmented reality, that's fantastic. Now we just need to figure out the regulations and a way to balance it with the morals of the people. And no, you cannot have a blanket system like, it's just Pokemon Go, and we're gonna send it to China, Korea, Japan, America, Germany, France, Italy, any place, you name it. You can't just have a blanket system. I think that in the future, games like this will have to and will be forced by regulation to work with local governments to prevent the abuse of the system and the abuse of power of the business behind it. I don't know. I'm not really trying to say anything pro Pokemon Go or negative against Pokemon Go. Just throwing my thoughts out there while making coffee. And I hope you enjoyed listening and thinking about these things as well while drinking coffee. If you are drinking coffee or tea, whatever it is you're drinking, if you have an opinion, I would love to hear it actually, because I'm always trying to piece together my thoughts, and the more that I read other people's comments, the more that I can reflect and think about these ideas of my own as well, and change my ideas sometimes, because sometimes in the comments, and often, more often than not, in the comments I read something and I go, hey, you know, you're right, like what you said about the Nintendo system, hey, actually, you know, asking for profits from the videos that I make, that is fair in a certain way, and maybe we could have a license, or maybe when I buy the game, I just pay a little bit more because I'm buying the YouTube Gamer's license, which is a special, more expensive license, because clearly Nintendo doesn't have a problem with us sharing the storylines of their games, they just want a cut of the money. Fine. It's gonna be just back and forth. I suggest my idea, Nintendo suggests their idea, and we just finally get to a middle ground, and I think the same thing will happen with Pokemon Go. You haven't heard the end of this. This, you know, it is affecting the world massively, and for a reason. This is interruptive technology, and quite rightly so. Let's see what happens. Really excited to hear what you guys have to say about it. Hopefully this was a slightly more relaxed episode of While I'm Making Coffee. I'm really, really keen on making some more slightly longer, slightly more relaxed episodes of While I'm Making Coffee. If you got any ideas about anything you'd like me to talk about, do leave it in the comments. Don't forget to comment, subscribe. Sorry, leave it in the comments, comment. Don't forget to comment, subscribe, share the links and all that great stuff. And of course, I will see you in the next Nihongo Gamer video. Japan is engineered to only allow you to live in Japan. A bit like Jurassic Park.
Just like Jurassic Park.
It's like you're... I'll never come back to the restaurant ever again. I can't believe you're being such a blatant foreigner.
I went drinking.
Ah.